Okay, hi everyone. We'll go ahead and get started now. Welcome to our Master Teaching Series. Today we have Dr. Amanda Eller joining us to talk about enhancing social learning in asynchronous online courses using Perusall. Dr. Amanda Eller is a clinical professor and chair of the Department of Teaching and Educational Studies in the College of Education, as well as a coordinator for teacher preparation in the Magic Valley. She started her career as an elementary teacher in 1998 and in 2014 transitioned into higher education when she was hired for the teacher education program at the ISU Twin Falls Center on the College of Southern Idaho campus. Dr. Eller earned her BS in elementary education from Idaho State, her ME, MEd in instructional technology from Lesley University, and her EDS, she's testing me today, in education administration from Northwest Nazarene University, and her PhD in educational leadership focused on literacy teacher preparation, also from NNU. She completed ISU's Quality Matters training in 2016 and has QM certified courses. She has taught most of the EDUC undergrad certified courses, EDUC, and several graduate courses over the past 12 years. And since 2020 has taught fully online. Understanding how online learning can be somewhat isolating for our ISU candidates, Dr. Eller is dedicated to providing engaging, collaborative online courses with enhanced social learning presence through the integration of Perusall. So welcome, Dr. Amanda Eller, and I'll go ahead and pass the mic over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Can you hear me online? Okay, great. Hey, let me go ahead and share my screen. Start the slides. So thank you for attending today. I know that using a specific platform can be kind of limiting sometimes for people. So I appreciate you coming here to learn more about Perusall. And I'm trying there. Accidentally left my mouse up in the College of Ed, so I'm doing it with the trackpad. Move all of you over on my screen so I can see what's on there. Just a little bit of who I am and why I'm here. Michelle read my bio, so that covers a lot of this. In prior to 2020 COVID times when everything shut down, ISU Twin Falls had an in-person teacher preparation program. And so I shifted from that to online teaching like everybody did. But then after things came back, the Twin Falls program was absorbed into our online teacher education program. So we've not gone back in person. And so I do teach fully online. All of that has transitioned as well to where I am teaching more graduate courses instead of undergraduate now. But one of the things that I noticed when I transitioned, especially to mostly asynchronous online, was lack of student engagement. Students hate the traditional discussion board. I don't care for this traditional discussion board. And I could tell they hadn't read the textbooks or viewed the materials. And I just also felt disconnected because I went from teaching in person and really building good relationships with my students to, just seeing a little icon. And so I started looking into different ways, and Perusall was one of the things that I found that has worked best for me. So, but in my research and deciding where to go, I learned more about the elements of social, cognitive, and teaching presence in the online classes. And so it's not just important for us as instructors to connect to our students, but the students to connect with each other, the students to connect with the materials, and the students to connect with the teacher. So with social constructivist learning, a full education experience includes that cognitive presence. Are they, again, connecting with the content and having conversations about the learning, that social presence, and then the teaching presence. And yeah, just it's been demonstrated over the years that these different connections, learner to learner, learner to content, learner to instructor, are critical in helping students be successful and get all they can out of asynchronous online courses. And I utilize Perusall with my synchronous courses too, but not as much because we do have the discussions. So I'm focused on the asynchronous environment for this presentation. So, and just also, those original, more seminal studies were pretty old if you paid attention to the dates. So a more recent resource here on social annotation enhancing presence. And so going through all of that, I came across the platform called Perusall. And some people call it Perusall. I just say Perusall because it's like you're perusing your stuff. So, I don't think it had been around too long prior to then. It really kind of exploded during COVID when a lot of learning went online, but I like it as a free platform. It integrates with Canvas, and it's easy to use on both the instructor and the student side. So Perusall allows for social annotation, meaning the students can make comments, everyone else can see their comments. I explain it to students, it's kind of like social media for learning. You make a post on something, others can reply to it, you can ask questions, you can tag people, and really kind of have a more unique and engaging interaction with each other and with the instructor. So within Perusall, you can utilize textbooks. You just have the Perusall code. So if you have students who are using the book bundle, then when you submit your materials, you just make sure that you're giving the ISBN that goes to the Perusall version, make a note, make sure they're ordering the Perusall code. I explain to students that you have to get the textbook in Perusall to be able to read it in there and annotate it. And just like you can't buy a movie on Prime and then watch it in Netflix, you can't buy the book somewhere else and then access it in Perusall. But they can also directly purchase it if they're not doing the book bundle, like if they're only taking one class, then they can directly purchase the textbook in Perusall. I just got an email yesterday from Perusall that Pearson will no longer be allowing their books to be used on any third-party services. So not just Perusall, but they're pulling out of any other services as of June. And so I only have one Pearson textbook across all of my classes, so that I'll have to find a sub for, but all of the other publishers are still available in Perusall. So you can upload documents. So these documents can be, articles, PDFs that you've downloaded that you can upload. I create a lot of documents on my own in Word, switch them to a PDF. Includes like the syllabus. So they're reading through the syllabus and making comments. I really appreciate it for project guidelines because that's something that in an AO class, students, if they're having a big project, you give them the guidelines, you ask if they have any questions. They're like, well, no, not really until they get into it. But by having them review the guidelines in Perusall, they can easily highlight and then tag me and ask a question like, what do you mean by this? Or how does this actually work type of thing. So it gives them more freedom to ask questions. They're not like having to send a separate email, and they can also ask each other questions as well. So, and every time they tag me, I get an email. So I know that they've asked a question. So I can go in and respond in a good amount of time. If they, don't tag me, if they're just having regular conversations or asking questions of each other, then I don't get emails. And I ask them to please not tag me on every post that they make because then I would get a million emails and I want to be able to make sure that I attend to questions or struggles they're having. You can also use videos, any videos that are available on YouTube or I just lost it, that other major video service, Vimeo, something like that. And some other services. I mostly go through YouTube, but podcasts can be put on here. They can listen to the podcast and annotate those. They have peer review. different types of peer review setups that you can do, which is really handy for my research and writing class. And then quizzes can be embedded throughout the material. That's a fairly new, sorry, new function, and I haven't used that, so I don't have any examples of the quizzes. But also, one thing I like is the Perusall grades for you automatically. It uses algorithms. You can set parameters, and I'll kind of show you how to set that up in a minute. And how many annotations they need to make, if you're grading on if they're reading the whole thing or not, and how much weight is given to each of the ways that they are engaging. And so then they are also receiving a grade for completing every chapter or every lesson or watching every video, which, as we know, some students are motivated by grades. So that really helps, and they actually do the reading. So in my research and writing class, I could tell such a huge difference between the previous semesters and the first semester that I used Perusall, because they actually did the reading. And so then like their literature reviews, their annotated bibliographies were done correctly. So it was nice. And as I mentioned, it does integrate with Canvas and it used to integrate with Moodle when we had that. So in Canvas, Perusall is an external tool available just like the other external tools. You just create assignments in Canvas. It links to the assignment that you've created in Perusall, and they talk to each other and the grades automatically transfer. So, and then there are, within Perusall in the settings, there's different settings, different assignment types. And I will show you how to create assignments. And then after that, I'll come back to my presentation and I'll give you some sample annotations and discussions that my students have done where I've redacted their information. So with this example walkthrough, I'm actually utilizing an independent study course that is on the books for me every semester that I don't have any students in. So there's nothing set up in here so that you can see what it's like to set up from the beginning. And since there aren't any students, then we can have this recorded and out there and nobody's information gets out. So I wanted to make sure didn't share any student information with this. And let me move you over again. All right, so in Canvas, to get started, I'm going to go into assignments. And if anybody has questions along the way, feel free to ask. I mean, I'm all about helping and clarifying. And I know that, some of this will go fast, but I just want you to have an idea and then you can explore and do this. I'm actually going to minimize or hide the thumbnail video for a minute so that I have full access of my screen and get around with everything. Okay, thank you so much. All right, so add an assignment. Excuse me. And I'll just Perusall link, because the first one I'm going to add is just going to set up the Perusall connection. And you can do all of that as you choose later, and I need an external tool. And then I go and I find the tool. Pearson's up top. That's why they have their own stuff. So they don't want to use Perusall anymore. So choose the Perusall LTI. And it's connecting, and as it connected that, it created this course in Perusall. So prior to this, if I logged into my Perusall account on its own, this course did not show up. Now it's connected, so now it will show up. And so this first one, I'm just going to do a link to the home page and then select, and that's there, and I'll save that. And now I'm going to load it in a window. And if you noticed across the top, it's said Canvas and stuff, and now it started and it loaded EDUC 4485 for this. And it starts with building the empty course. And I am actually going to copy just content so that there's a book that I already have access to in one of my other courses. So let's do this, and I don't want anything except for the textbook right now. I could select everything, so it's easy to import previous class. and just have all of the assignments already ready to go and all of that stuff. And I'm not going to copy any assignments. You can copy your course settings, adjust all deadlines automatically for the new semester, instructor comments. So if there are sometimes things that I've wanted to clarify on a video or say how this applies in our class, I do that comment once on the actual video and it copies in every time I copy the course. So I don't have to go do that every semester. You can copy rubrics, copy scoring templates, anything. I'm not going to do any of that this time because I want to start it from scratch and show you that. You can upload the syllabus and have it do a starter assignment if you want to. I'm not going to do that right now. Come on. Go away. I had my real mouse. Okay, I guess it's going to do that. And then here, the reason I imported that other book was so I would have immediate access to it. If you're just getting started and you haven't used the book before, you can request it, and you usually have access to it within about 24 hours, as long as it's in their catalog. But they have about 1.5 million books in their catalog, so most of the books you want are in there. So I'll skip adding a book, except Pearson now. Okay, and then student cost. Like I said, Perusall can be free to use, and ISU hasn't purchased a license, but I use a textbook, so the students are buying the book, and so therefore buying the book in Perusall gets a little payback from that or something, whatever, kickback from that. And the books are actually the same price or cheaper than what you can buy them on Amazon typically. So like this, it's not being upcharged. If you're doing a course without any type of textbook, then they suggest that you charge a small fee, but you're not required to. So I'm having this book, so it's not asking me that. But if I wasn't adopting anything, it would ask if I wanted a fee. If I said no, then it just asks why not, and you can choose my institution doesn't allow it or any other of the options.
So the
Yes.
$80 are like the student will pay for the book and
Yes.
through Perusall.
Through Perusall, yes. And so for this one, it says perpetual online access. So they're buying this book forever. So even after this class is done, they can log on to Perusall and have access to that book in their personal library.
They export it?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, so they will have to log back into this platform to read it again, but right. Yeah, hopefully it doesn't go away. But there's a lot of textbooks also have a rental option. So, it's cheaper and they can just access it for the 180 days or 90 days or whatever you want. So. Okay, and then there's settings. So I'm teacher education. I'll say there's 20 students. I'm not going to have grouping, start and end dates. That's fine for now. I want automatic grading and engagement analytics, and then I'll show you where you can change those. You can also do manual grading if you don't want that. Disable all grading, but engagement only, and disabling everything. So, but I would like the automatic. Using English. And then this is another one, releasing scores to students. I have it after the deadline has passed, including late comment period and post deadline reply window. That way, I want them to actually engage with the material and not be looking at what's my grade at now? What's my grade at now? What's my grade at now? So I wait until like after it's due, and then they can see their grade. I don't want to have to go in and manually release all of those, though. That's a lot of work for me that I don't need. I have enough to do. So I have them automatically released, not instantaneously. So, and then yes, I do want it to sync the assignment scores back to the LMS, and you can have Perusall create the gradebook columns, or you can create deep links in the LMS. I just have Perusall create those in Canvas for me. All right, and then I'm ready to go. And then, so this is the blank screen, basically. Across the side, you have home, which takes me to all of my courses, the library for this course, assignments for this course, any students who are enrolled, none are, but it will automatically enroll your students when you start the course. notes, your grade book, and then other discussions that you want. And yeah, see these other things. So the library and assignment tabs are basically what I use most of the time. So, but I also want to go to settings. And the students, you can change their names, whatever, but the scoring basics, all of that was in the setup, but you can, wanted to show this that if you changed your mind, you can go back and change this. Like you're like, wait a minute, I want it to be, before the late comment period, not after it. You can go back and change these. You can also drop lowest assignment scores if you want, how many of those you want to drop. Yeah, lots of different things here. I make my highest possible score 10. I have everything scored from 0 to 10. And so I'll save that change. And then I want to go to scoring settings. And I do a 2 decimal point scoring precision. And depending on the course, sometimes, for some, again, depending on the course, I guess. If you don't really care when they read it, you just want them to make sure they read it. You don't care when they complete it. You can choose do not enforce assignment deadlines, and then they can go back and do it at any time and the points will count. If you have your assignment deadlines enforced, then they can go back and do it late, but just it won't change their grade. So you can assign a score if they complete no work. So if they don't do it, they get a 0, basically. And grades synced to the LMS should be a percentage off of the full one. I do everything in points. So you can hide from students the number of comments required for full credit, hide grade feedback. They do have, as Perusall's getting more AI integration like everything else. So they have dynamic suggestions for students on how to improve their score. Like if a student isn't really engaging or doing much, it'll kind of pop up and say, hey, have you thought about doing this or whatever? So you can disable that if you don't want it. So we'll save that. Zoomed in, let me zoom back out so I can see more here.
Is there a way, like, if you enforce the deadlines, like, give us you like an extension? Is there a set?
Yes, yes. So you can have all of them. I'm trying to remember where.
Give us extensions like me, so.
Yeah.
I don't want them.
Right.
Fall behind.
Right.
Like, as long as it's in the end of the semester, they do everything in the last week.
Yeah, and you can have an automatic extension where every assignment they can go for a week late or 2 days late, and it won't penalize them. Or you can go in and go to a specific assignment and give a particular student an extension. So, okay, these are default scoring templates they do. I like to create my own because and it'll just be for all of my standard assignments. So just standard assignments. And again, my highest possible scores are 10. And I'm going to fully admit to you that Perusall updated their interface over the Christmas break. And so these things that I knew exactly where it was and how it worked because I'd done it for years, all changed on me. So so give me a little grace, pretty please, when I'm like, wait a minute, where'd this go? So, all right. And so score weights and different things that you can choose. So commenting. I have on a standard chapter of reading, I require 4 annotations or comments. I experimented a little bit, and when I had 5, students complained. They're like, I'm too worried about making sure I do all of my comments that I'm not paying attention to what I'm reading. And when I did 3, there wasn't enough engagement. Settled on 4, like students think, oh, that's not very much. And so they don't really pay attention to it. And then they typically end up making a lot more than 4 because they're not worried about hitting a specific number and they're just more focused on engaging with each other and the text. So I choose 4. And then Perusall evaluates the comments as high quality, medium quality, and low quality. And when you're setting up your course, you can decide if it's more of a social sciences type course, or, you know, they have a couple of different types. Mine's social sciences, so that's one I remember. For medium quality comments, I don't want half credit. That's a 50%, right? So I do a custom, and I typically give them, because medium quality, what they judge to be medium quality is still typically acceptable for me. So I give them 90% for medium quality, and then low quality, they're still participating. So I do 75% for that, but you can customize that however you want. You can also do participation-based scoring. They get full credit for whatever. You can deduct if all of their comments are bunched together. So like they went in and just did their comments to be done rather than kind of spread throughout. You can choose if you want to deduct any of that. And then here's the deadline reply window. So you can have no responses. You can have a few hours. I have an automatic overnight grace period that I apply to everything because it's due at 11:59. I'm not grading at 1 a.m. So if, you know, most of my students are, you know, full-time professional in the workforce, so they're doing their homework late. I remember when I was going to grad school and teaching full-time, and I did a lot of homework late. So I'm like, if it works for you to do it 3 a.m., I don't care. That's not going to bother me. So I do 12 hours. But yeah, you can have it automatically be, you know, for weeks, months, that's up to you. And then the scoring, you can have it to not score any late comments as well. So again, I do the 12 hours. Can you hear me now? Yes, okay. We got kicked out. I'm not sure what happened. So
Technology, man.
yep, technology. It's the wind's fault. It's the wind's fault. Okay, so did you all see this scoring template when I was going through that? Okay, I wasn't sure when it.
Missed that part, I think.
Okay. So yeah, I changed the comment content to be 50% of their grade and those other changes that I made. Opening the assignment. This is just them clicking and opening it. I don't want 20% of their grade just for opening it. I give 5% just for opening it. So, reading, watching, or listening to the end, I typically do about 10%. Their active engagement time, and you can set this on how much time you want them actively engaging. So if it's something long, you're like, this has to take them at least an hour. There's no way they could get through it faster than that. Or something shorter, you can, you know, set it for 10 minutes. 45 minutes is usually appropriate for mine. I want them at least 45 minutes. I tell them to plan for an hour and a half, but it's.
What do you consider active engagement? Is that like open and scrolling or commenting or?
All of the above. If they're open and like they're doing stuff in there, they're moving to the next page, they're scrolling, commenting, all of that keeps it as active engagement. So it's opening it, walking away is not active engagement. So, and how much of that do you want related to the time that they're spending? And then getting responses. So actually I weight the active engagement a lot higher. So, because that's what I want them doing is actually engaging. Getting responses, it defaults to having 5 conversations that receive replies from peers. For my small classes, that's way too much. Like, again, they would all be focused on just doing their comments. So it's like, put it at 1, and I don't weight this very highly. I'd love them to get a lot of responses, but upvoting, you can upvote like comments. Again, I don't put a whole lot of weight on that and how many upvotes you want to get. And then quizzes, like I said, I don't use the quizzes yet, so I put that at 0% because I'm not even doing. So, and so it's scroll back up here. So what I have it weighted at, there's 115% total. So it kind of gives a little leeway in there. You know, if they don't fully do one thing, but they do more on another, they can still get full points for the assignment. And you can make it equal just 100%. You can make it equal 200% to where they only, you know, it's up to you. So, and yes. Okay. Maybe. Yeah, I need my real mouse. I'll just close that. So that's kind of setting up those things. And then to create an actual assignment, go to assignments. I'm going to add an assignment. I'm using the standard assignment settings that I just set up. I'm going real fast. I'm just naming it chapter 1. So, and I'll let the defaults for all of that go. And then select your content. And the only content I have in here right now is this textbook, but like I said, you can add videos, you can add podcasts, all of those things to the library. And then everything you have in the library will be available here. And I'm going to assign from the table of contents because this is the first chapter, so I'll start at the cover and have them go through, not the index, through chapter 1. So you can do page ranges. If you have a document, you just assign the whole content. Like if you have an article you want them to read. If you're using a video or a podcast, it automatically defaults to all content. You can't, there isn't a way to say, oh, I only want them to watch the first 5 minutes or something. It defaults to all content. And then you have your instructions and you can type whatever you want there. If you don't want it visible to students yet, you can choose a date when you want it visible. You can assign it to your entire class, specific students only, everybody except a couple of students, depending on what it is. So that's kind of nice. Anonymous posting, I don't allow anonymous posting. I think that's just kind of garnering trouble for most things. You can choose if the assignment's extra credit, if it's optional. You can choose to not remind them to complete it. And you can also gate this assignment based on the quiz progress. So if they don't, like I said, I don't use the quizzes, so I don't have a lot with that, but like they have to do so well to keep going or something like that. So all of that's there. And then okay. Okay, let's go. I don't know why it's not letting me do okay. Anybody see something I'm missing? Maybe I'll choose it to be visible today. End of day. Well, I am not sure why it wouldn't let me do that. I'm sorry. Maybe because there aren't any students. That could possibly be why. Because there are no students enrolled in this class, so maybe it doesn't have anything to assign it to. So that's because I've never had that happen before. So that just popped in my mind. That's probably why. But if there were students, then the assignment would show up here and they would go into it and proceed from there. So, and in the library, this is where you add additional content. So you can add another book, a document. You can import from Dropbox, Google Drive, import from Canvas, or upload. You can have a page from Canvas. We're pretty new to Canvas, so I haven't tried out any of these pieces yet. A web page, they kind of take a screenshot of the web page. So it's a static, it's not a live web page. It is a static version of it. You can create the quiz, a video. Okay, so YouTube, Vimeo, and then O clips, or if you have direct URL to a video. And some videos like short, you can upload. Like I said, I mostly just use YouTube because that used to be the only option. So that's what I'm used to. Podcasts, you can do direct or URLs and links to other things. You can create a folder if you want. Like I have different lessons with, I have 3 videos for this and 2 documents. So I just create a folder for all of that, materials from another course. So you can add all of those different things to your library to then add to assignments. And when you do create those assignments, I'll go back in here. I said, now I know why it won't let me, but I'll just go to content. I can add another part. So like here, if I'm going to, I don't have a whole lot of options. So I'll do the chapter 1 piece again. But then if I also want them to read chapter 2 as part of the same assignment, then I can add that. And, you know, just add, but everything you have in there. So if I want them to read the assignment and then I want them to watch a video that kind of helps support what they had read, I could just add the video to it. So you can have multi-part lessons that incorporate multimedia, because we all know multimodal learning works best. And so then I wanted to show some examples. So these are, like, that's what it looks like blank. And like I said, I didn't want to show any student names or images or anything. So I just took screenshots from some of my previous courses. But so the purple is what someone highlighted that they're actually commenting on now. The yellow are other highlights and other conversations. So within this conversation, there's this highlight. But, you know, the first person posted, and, you know, I often consider this when I hear blah, blah, blah. And so it's important to check. And then someone tagged them back to reply. And then the next person tagged conversation because they wanted both of these people to know that they were responding to the entire conversation. And so with this first comment, the initial poster would have gotten an email that someone commented. With the one who did conversation, both of the people will get an email that someone commented. There's also the option to tag at everyone, which students don't really use, but I use that sometimes, especially when someone has brought up a really good question on a guidelines document or something. I'm like, oh, this is a great question. I tag at everyone so they can see the question and my answer. So.
Is there a way to not get an email every time you like set it to digest, you get it once a day or something like that?
Not that I have seen, no, not for tags. So. Yeah, that's why I tell them only tag me if you need me to respond. Yeah. And I've had a few people that like tag me on every comment thinking, oh, see, she'll know I'm doing it. And I contact them, please stop. In the nicest way, please don't do that. And so that was from a textbook. This is an example from a PDF. So Idaho's Comprehensive Literacy Plan. I upload that and assign the specific pages related to the course. And this is conversation view. So this is showing a lot, like all of this conversation starters. And some of these are questions talking about NAEP and the ISAT, kind of making connections to outside stuff they've done. And this is an example from the podcast. It's just, you know, a gray screen because they're listening, but every yellow bump is where someone has paused and made a comment. And then these are, again, the list of conversation starters. Over here, you can see how many replies are to that conversation or that comment. So this one had 3. And also, like with the podcast, I have some students who are deaf or hard of hearing in some of my classes. So if you see, this is part 1 of 2. Part 1 is the actual podcast. Part 2 is the transcript, the published transcript, so that people who can't hear the podcast can read the transcript. Some students like to have the transcript in front of them and make the comments on the transcript and like listen to the podcast through their phone so that they're both reading and hearing it. And so this is one where I set it to not penalize for not having comments throughout the whole thing, because I'm like, you can comment on the podcast or the transcript, and that way they're not marked down for not commenting on both. So this is a screenshot from a video. So smart student with Chelsea Seaburn, if you teach APA and have never used her videos, I recommend it. The students really, yeah, they can read all about the APA, but when they're seeing her video and her using it, it helps. But so yeah, that's a video, and they tagged me on this one, so I highlighted that. And then this is one of those comments that I make on the video that I import every semester. So you can see my icon there, and because I tell them as part of your annotated bibliography, you will do this, because the video says different instructors do it different ways. So right there, when she says that, I have this comment that says, this is how I do it, and this is what you will need to do. So, which is, again, nice, because it's immediate clarification as they're watching that. And then example introductions. So, we all have the meet and greet or introduction discussion forum. You can also do those here. I have them highlight a letter of their name, and then, kind of tell who they are, where they're from and stuff. And, in those meet and greet boards, it's like reply to 2 people or 3 people or whatever. You can see that even at, let's see, it says you need to comment on at least 4 introductions, but these have 10, 11, 9, the lowest one. There's one that only has 2, but then 5. I mean, they're, especially like if someone is replying to someone's introduction, they tag them, then they know, oh, somebody replied. I want to read what they had to say. Do they have a question? And they actually answer it. Whereas your regular discussion board, they often don't go back in and check unless they're required to. So they are more invested in interacting with those introductions. And they interact with each other so much throughout the semester that they start, I'd always notice an uptick over the first few weeks of the amount of annotations, and they're back and forth and responding to each other as they get to know each other better and how they all work. So this is an example of a textbook Q&A. So someone tagged, asked a question, and then I responded, and somebody else was like, oh, well, this really makes sense then. Thank you, and it also notes that it's a question with the little question mark there. And if they don't tag me in the question, then I let their peers answer it. Unless I've read through and I see, okay, this really does need answered by me, then I'll do that. But I want them to be asking and answering each other's questions as well. This is really, I'm not sure yet. In especially the quantitative analysis portion of the methods chapters of the research and writing book, students who haven't taken stats yet, they get confused and they're asking questions. And then the students who have taken stats, chime in and help clarify. And that works better than me explaining it to them. They really like learning from each other. So, and then this is just some example of student feedback about Perusall. So you can all read, so I'll just give you a couple of minutes to read those. Those come from different courses. And yeah, I'll be quiet and let you read them for a minute. Okay, give me indications when you're done. I don't want to rush anyone through, but I don't want to sit here if you're done. So, okay, good. Thanks. And this is what inspires me to keep making it better and keep going with it is, there's not all of our students are choosing to take online classes. It's the only modality available to them for some of our courses. Like the 6601 is only offered asynchronous online, the research and writing class. And so, and like the third one said, she hates electronic books, but right? But it made up for it because of the engagement and learning differently.
That's
So,
something I kind of struggle with in terms of like adopting this sort of books,
right.
especially with my like poli-sci grad students. A lot of them like keep the book, right, and have it, and I get, they get the perpetual license, but like
Right.
having to log into a random platform to access it is a challenge. And then like some of my books are like, it's cheaper to find them used.
Right,
Like,
for
how do
sure.
and I'm like, ooh, like, would we want a student to have to pay for a digital copy of a book that they could get for $2 at, Walrus and Carpenter?
Yeah.
In town, so like, I'm still trying to navigate that. For PDFs, I love this. For
Yeah.
books, I'm like, although I did see my book in there, so.
Okay, see, there it is. Yes, it's available. You could try it out a semester, and I have had some students say that they wanted the physical book, so they went ahead and bought that too. And, because and that was an extra expense on them, and I'm sorry for that, but that's what they wanted, so they chose to buy it. But I was at the distinguished teacher thing last year, and one of the other panelists also uses Perusall, but I think she said she doesn't use it for her textbook. She just uses it for the supplemental lessons. And so like the videos and the articles and different things like that. So, and I do like for every textbook chapter, almost, depending on the course, but typically for the textbook chapter, I then have a supplemental lesson that reinforces it with videos or graphics or different things. And so if you don't want the book in here, you could have them read the textbook, but then have a supplemental lesson that goes with each one to bring in that multimodal learning.
Amanda, this is
Yes.
Laura online. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. I'm really enjoying this online session, and I teach to an undergraduate class, and it's fully online, and so and I pull out all the tricks and what I can to keep them engaged, and so I'm really enjoying this and learning about this. I have a couple questions, and one of them is, do you host your entire course, most of it then in Perusall, or what is your LMS? Is it Canvas that you're using?
Yes, it is Canvas.
Do you put all the materials in Perusall so that they're mostly in Perusall all the time?
So I will actually, because I can go into a current course without you seeing student stuff. That's a great question. So let me, excuse me. And I use this in undergraduate and graduate courses. So just letting you know, it works great with both. And I've even used it for professional development, like virtual book study with current practicing teachers. And so, there's lots of different uses for it. So, let me scroll to like not the first module because it's always different. So I have the module. I always start with module essentials that tells them what they're learning this week and why, and an outline of what the assignments are and approximate how long this should take you so they can plan their weeks. And then they have field work. So their field work is totally hosted in Canvas. The only type of actual Canvas discussion boards I do are field work related when they're reflecting on what their field work experiences were. But then the building background. So this is fundamentals chapter 3. And they click on this and it will open direct to Perusall to that chapter, direct into that assignment. It doesn't take them to Perusall that then they have to find the assignment again. So when creating that, and actually, let me open this. I'll edit those assignment settings. And so with the external tool, with this one, Perusall.
Got it.
I just want to show you real quick. So then the assignments, and then this shows every assignment that I have set up in Perusall. And so I can link, I think this was chapter 3, and I'd link to that assignment. So then when they click the assignment in Canvas, it will open that assignment direct in Perusall to that page.
Okay.
And
And so a follow-up question to that,
Mhm.
if I were to say do a book and bring in scholarly articles and then also videos, what would be the charge, the cost then to the student if I had multiple modalities? Just the
Nothing.
one book?
Yep, just the one book. Everything else that you put in there has no charge or no cost. So,
And then I would have to use open science articles, right?
I mean,
Like-
if it's an article that if you were in an in-person class and you would make copies and give the article to your students to read, I mean, you can put it in here because this is within, it's an LMS connection. They're only accessing it here. You can make it to where they cannot download or print any of the media that you upload. So, if it needs to be protected that way, they can view it for your class, but not be able
And-
to download it and take it with them later so that you're kind of protecting that authorship or those restrictions.
But you could
Yeah,
put
if
in a
you have a
scholarly
full
article and they could comment on it
Mhm,
because they struggle with that so much.
right.
Okay.
Yes, so they totally could, and you just set it to where they can't download it. So if you have something that you want them to be able to download, then you can make your settings where they can download what you upload. So that's up to you.
Okay. Yeah, I love this.
Awesome. And
Thank you.
so here, like I have a watch and annotate because this one goes to a video. Orthographic mapping lessons. So this is a supplemental lesson to this chapter that they read that has videos and graphics and stuff on this topic. So they go here, it opens to that book. They go here, it opens direct to that lesson and starts in that. And then also in the in your module settings, when you can gate how things are done, like they can do it by viewing it. They can mark things as done, as well. Yeah, a lot of, with the Perusall ones, I just let them mark it as done because, and maybe as we have Canvas longer and stuff, it'll start to communicate better, but like they would finish it and the grade would be there, but it wouldn't mark it as done even though they had clicked it here. Or if they are in Perusall already and they know, well, this is my next assignment, I'm just going to go to it in Perusall, it's still done. So I just allow them to mark it as done here rather than having to click or something. So.
I have a question on the annotation.
Mhm.
So, like, with the traditional discussion board, there's like the option, like you have to post before you can see everybody else is posting.
Yes.
Is it like the last student to do the annotation assignment? Because it's like designed to be social, do you see everybody else's annotations already?
Typically, but you can restrict that.
Okay.
So you can make it to where they have to, do at least 2 or 3 annotations before they can see others.
I was wondering if you're the last one to go in like, and you're just highlighting the same thing, being like, me too. Like, I did
Well,
run
but
to the beach
me
problem.
too doesn't count toward their grade. Like, yeah. So, and also,
So even if they're the last person to annotate, as long as they say something intelligent. I guess if they have to annotate themselves or if they just reply to someone else's annotation, does that?
it still counts, yes. But a lot of times I tell them, I want you to reply because I want you to build on what they learn and like carry on the conversation, right? So,
You're like,
but
the
yeah.
last person to get in there, and like every point I would have made is already highlighted.
Mhm.
I'm penalized for going last. But as long
Not
as you're
really.
saying, like, yeah, I have that same thought
Mhm.
here, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and then encourage them to, make the text-to-text connections, other things you've learned and stuff, so. And yeah, there's all sorts of additional settings that I didn't get into because there's going into the weeds, but, so then, yes, final thoughts, questions, epiphanies, anything else that you're wondering about?
I've been resisting this for a while, but I think I like it.
Okay, these are my references just because. APA. So- I actually like APA, but I'm kind of a nerd that way, so. Oh, no.
Is somebody dissing APA in that room, Ed?
Yes, it's me.
Yeah, he is.
Oh,
No, I hate it. It's the only thing, APA is better than MLI. MLI is the worst.
I agree with,
Um,
MLA is the worst,
don't know
yes,
why I'm
but.
people in the room. But even co-teaching a class with an English professor, she's like, I have never submitted anything at MLA, like no journals want it.
Right, they all want APA. So let me see
No,
if I can.
yeah, this is really helpful because like I said, I've been struggling, like I teach summer classes at another institution that has a lot more money and they've been pushing all of these fancy things.
Okay.
And so they've been Perusal's been a thing I've been pondering for a while, and I'm just like, I like it, but I'm also, but then there's like physical book versus digital book, and I've not actually like been able to see what it looks like.
Right,
So this is definitely giving me some stuff to think about. But
great. I'm glad to hear that.
Because it's a stupid thing.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Any other questions or thoughts? Marin, I'm not sure if I said your name correctly.
Yeah, yep, perfect. Thank you so much. This has been very helpful for me as well. I teach totally asynchronously online in our Spanish MA program. And I have thought also about using Perusall, but have just not dug into it. I'm wondering if options exist for students to leave audio feedback, like to record their voice and or video feedback, or if this is strictly a written thing.
As of now, it's strictly a written thing. They do have Perusall communities for faculty, and I think that I remember seeing people bringing that up, that's something they would like Perusall to start to integrate. They make updates and add new options and tools fairly regularly, which is nice. And also some things I just like, no, I don't need that right now, so I don't really pay attention to it. But that has been brought up, but as of now, it is written for all annotations and comments.
Okay, thank you very much.
And the Perusall help desk is awesome too. Like if you have a question or their students having a struggle or something, send a message and they get right back to you. And if you have an idea for something that you want them to do, you can give that and they'll start looking into it. So. Anything else? I know we're up against our hour, so.
A lot of
All
good
right.
feedback in the
Well,
chat.
thank you so much, everyone. I'm glad you came and I'm glad that it was beneficial to you. Thank you.
you.
My asynchronous summer classes are